Morning, everybody. We'll get this meeting started. Welcome to the Metro Outer Development Assessment Panel. My name's Clayton Hyam. I'm the presiding member panel this morning, and with me I have Mr. Ian Birch, who's the deputy presiding member, Mr. Jason Hick, who's the third specialist member, and councillors for the City of Cockburn, councillors Wanneroo and Swan. And I'll introduce the other councillors when we get to those items. Officially declare the meeting open at 9:35 and acknowledge the traditional owners and elders past and present for the land upon which we're all meeting today. Apologies from Councillor Smith and Councillor Huntley, both from the City of Wanneroo. No members listed as being on leave of absence, and minutes from previous meetings are available on the MODAP website. Just moving to the first item this morning, which is part B, item 3.1. It's the warehouse in Jandakot. Have a presenter, Mr. Nick Hidding. Mr. Hidding. Can't hear you, Nick. Still can't hear Nick. Hang on. No. Try again, Nick. No. All right. What is it? I think the problem's got to be at your end there, Nick. Nick, we'll continue. We'll take your submission as read. We'll read the information. In fact, I need to probably get acknowledgement that we have, in fact, understood and read the material before us this morning, and that we have no conflict of interest. Sorry about that. Okay, thanks, Nick. We'll move on then. Move to the officers. Where are we? City of Cockburn. Do you want to make any presentation or just taking questions?
Hi, panel members. No, the city doesn't have any comments or questions to make at this time.
Okay, all right. We'll move to members of the panel. Do you have questions of the officers?
Just had one.
Yes.
One small question, just in relation to the heritage area. Is that still relevant now the cottage is gone?
At the moment, no, that heritage area isn't. It's still noted within our mapping systems, and it still sits on the site, except that the physical building is not currently there anymore. There was a previous development application that removed that the physical building that was on site.
Thank you.
Further questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Councillor Dewan.
Councillor Dewan.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I have a few questions. So I'll present my first question, which is to do with the initial approval of this land, which was probably for, I think, 5,000 square meters of warehouse. There were 3 warehouses of 5,000 square meters each, with a little ancillary unit. And my question is, do we need to rescind that previous approval at this stage or just continue with the next motion?
I can confirm from the city's point of view that we won't need to change anything from that previous approval. The current approval, if this goes through, will essentially replace the old existing approval.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, the next question is around the validity of the approval, which you have set at 4 years. Do you think that is too long, or is it appropriate to have 4 years? Because I believe it could be 2 years so that the development takes place quickly rather than late.
I believe the JDAP regulations state that 4 years is the appropriate time that approvals have until they officially lapse.
Right. The next question is around the deliveries on a Saturday, and the condition number 4 states that the traffic will be allowed between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. On a Saturday. So you're aware that there is a residential apartments close proximity to the warehouse. Do you think that we could look at reviewing that?
Condition 4 relates to the building or construction. So that's more to do with the actual construction of the buildings itself. If you may be referring to the conditions, condition 25, which states that there shall not be no deliveries or operations to the warehouse units as stated between hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Monday to Saturday, and then 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. Sundays and public holidays. So the difference in those two conditions is obviously number 4 is more about, the construction of the site. And then condition 25, which I believe you may be alluding to, is actually in regards to the deliveries to certain units to the northern portion of that site.
Right, okay. Now, the other condition, if you look at, refer to page number 103, which is the conclusion part of the traffic impact assessment. It says that there will be 258 daily trips, both inbound and outbound, and the traffic is probably moderate as per the report. Are you aware that the wave park is going to be constructed in the future, and that's going to play a very play an impact on the density of the traffic? So has that been taken into account, or it is just done in isolation for this warehouse development?
Yeah, the city has noted, the TIS has indicated that traffic moves to the site, and it shall be looked at not only in isolation, but the city will be happy to take those questions to the city's transport engineer for further clarification.
Further questions?
Yes, through the chair. Referring to condition 14, which says that the single largest truck would be 12.5 meters long, which will be accessing and egressing the northern portion of the site. My question is, there are trucks which are longer than 12.5 meters lately. Is that your understanding, or my assumption is wrong?
So this condition specifically states that this is the largest truck that shall enter the northern portion of the site. So as seen on the plans, there's a northern route that goes around the units facing the northern portion of the site, and essentially we're restricting the size of that truck to be 12.5 metres to enter that portion of the site.
Thank you. Just looking at my notes for a few more questions, which is, it was regarding the bushfire. There was a wall to be constructed, right? In one of the conditions, which stated that it is in a bush-prone area. I'm just trying to locate that question. Yeah, so it's on the page 12 of the recommendation, which says the primary orientation of the building facade faces Princep Road to the east. The lot has interface to residential lots. A noise wall is recommended as a condition of development approval along the northern lot boundary. Now, do you have any dimensions of that wall? How high, how long?
Yes, so the acoustic report, or the amended acoustic report that was submitted does state exactly where that noise wall will sit. That noise report states that it's at 2.2 metres. We've placed a condition on the approval under condition, I'll have a look at what condition that was, but we did ask for that to be increased to 2.8 metres. And yeah, essentially that was to comply with the noise regulations.
And how long it will be?
It'll be the entire length of that boundary.
Right. Okay, my last question is around the parking shortfall. I believe 5 bays per unit has been the norm for the number of cars. That makes it 5 times 46, which is the number of warehouses. 5 times 46 is 230, whereas the provision is for 213. So we are 17 car bays short, right? How do we circumvent that?
The city identified that, so within our local planning policy for industrial development, we can either accept a 5 bay per unit, or we can go off the scheme's provisions through ratios for typical land uses. So for example, a warehouse land use is 1 bay to 100 square metres. The 5 bays per unit equated to a larger portion of bays, so we were happy to accept a 17 bay shortfall based on the fact that they were providing more parking on site anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, no more questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. In relation to condition 21, you've asked for a further acoustic report. The current acoustic report, as you say, recommends a 2.2 metre high wall, acoustic wall. So you've asked for a further report, and yet you've recommended a 2.8 metre high wall. Is that preempting the further report?
Yes, that's right. So in the further report, the city did recommend that wall to be increased to a height of 2.8 metres, and there were some just minor amendments with the wording of some of how the trucks or large trucks were identified in that report.
So you don't agree with the acoustic report in terms of the 2.2 metre high wall?
That's correct.
In condition, where is it? Condition 23, we're seeking written confirmation from the builder. It seems to me the builder is a third party in this, and it should be written confirmation from the applicant or the landowner.
So I guess where the builder comes into this condition is where we have a building permit application that comes in, and we need to know that where external fixtures which aren't identified in these plans for this development approval, such as aircon units and any vents that are put in, we need certification or confirmation from the builder that all the recommendations in the acoustic report have been met in that building permit.
But this is a planning application. So at this stage, the builder is a third party. You don't have control over the builder. this point. So it needs to be to the landowner or the builder in consultation with or whatever the landowner. Is that correct?
The city wouldn't object to the wording of that condition to be amended to the landowner or applicant.
Right. Okay. Thank you. In condition 26, you've mentioned a delivery management plan, but there's no advice note or any understanding of what a delivery management plan might contain. Is that a standard condition for you? Are there standard requirements for a delivery management plan?
Yeah, so the standard requirements for the delivery management plan would be looking at some of the practices towards the northern portion of the site, such as the delivery times, which have been stated in these conditions. Also, just more clarification on the size of those trucks that would be entering that site, and just, yeah, a specific plan for those northern units.
All right. No, I think that's probably it for now. So no further questions? No. Okay, thank you for that, officers. We'll move on to the item. There is a recommendation for approval with conditions. Is there a mover for that? Yes, Councillor Dewan.
Yeah.
And the seconder? Councillor Waddenborough, thank you. Yes, I was going to get to those when yeah, that's right. Now I realise there are some typos and that we need to deal with those. Councillor Dewan, as mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think this development seems to meet the planning guidelines and the zoning. There are a few issues which I think the city of Cockburn will have to deal with before they issue the work permit or the construction permit. And so in all, I think this development will pave the way for increasing the business activities in the city of Cockburn and around areas, and would be the only thing is 4 years is a bit longer time. So if it could be done earlier, I would have preferred that. But in all, I think it would add to the development of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waddenborough.
No, all good for me, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Further speakers? Would you like to correct the items? Condition 22.
Yeah, I'll speak to the item. I support the application. It's pretty straightforward, really. It's been thoroughly assessed and amendments made where appropriate. Yeah, there are two typographical errors pointed out by Mr. Hidding. One is in relation to condition 22, which refers to itself, and it should refer to the condition 21,
correct,
which is above. And I think the other one's advice note 10, is it? Which refers,
note 10, yes.
Yeah, which refers to condition 39, and there is no condition 39, but it refers to condition 36. So,
that's administrative. So yeah, we'll deal with that administratively. Thank you. Comments?
Did you? I'll leave it to that.
Yeah, all right.
I'll just make the comment that yeah, I've never seen a condition like condition 23 before, and I was trying to think. Yeah, you might have some thoughts on that. So I'll leave that to you how we deal with that. But I agree that the way it's written now is dubious.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Having reviewed the Responsible Authority report and our discussions today, I'm comfortable to support motion, and therefore accept the recommendation that has been put to us in the responsible authority report. I concur with the previous speaker in that it is a relatively straightforward matter in terms of our consideration, given the planning framework, the proposed use, and the development proposed, comfortable with those necessary administrative changes or amendments to conditions, noting some discussion around conditions and wording of conditions. I was generally comfortable with those, but at the same time also happy to hear any alternates in terms of clarifications that had been maybe foreshadowed. So I'm happy to support the motion as presented, and we'll vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to support the motion as well. I think, though, in terms of condition 23, I think it's always dangerous in projecting ahead to something that's not part of the planning process. This is asking for something in a separate legislative process, which is the building licence. So while I did suggest that confirmation from the landowner, that doesn't really work, because this is talking about a future application for a building permit. So I'm suggesting that condition 23 be deleted and the rest of the conditions be renumbered. So do I have a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay. Okay. Right. I've spoken to it. Do you want to speak in terms of seconding that?
Just, and I think in how to deal with this is that condition 21 and 22 require a revised acoustic report. So those matters, the matter of the 2.8 metre high wall can be dealt with through that process, and through the building licence process, that can be picked up there. So it's not as though we're doing away with the intent of it.
No, that's right. Any further speakers on that amendment?
Just checking, does that amendment include updating condition 22 at the wording to refer to condition 21?
Yes, that's already been mentioned.
Great.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes. So if there's no further discussion on that, deletion of condition 23 and the renumbering of the following conditions, I'll put that motion. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So back to Councillor Swan to close debate.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do I have to?
Thank you for that.
Mr. Presiding Member, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Mr. Edding.
Thank you. I won't interject too much, other than I had the Zoom app just went to a different microphone which wasn't plugged in, but it's all working now. Thank you for the discussion and the debate. All I wanted to say was that we had an opportunity with the city to discuss some of the conditions, such as the delivery management plan and the updated acoustic report. We understand what's required of those and what the city is expecting, and we're happy with that. Equally, we're happy with condition 23 to be deleted if that's the way the panel wants to work that. The acoustic report that we'll submit will deal with those issues. And other than that, we're happy with the recommendation, obviously, and thank the city for its recommendation. Back to you for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll put that motion as amended to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. We can log off now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Cockburn. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, okay. hold on for a while and we'll make sure everybody's in attendance electronically.
Might have to be in person. You've got your mic switched on the right.
Sorry?
You've got the right mic switched on there.
Sure.
You want to come down over
Yeah.
here?
Right. Okay. Move on now to City of Wanneroo item. And welcome to the panel, Councillors McQuillan and Bowring. Oh, sorry, they're the officers. Councillors, sorry, Heritage and Coetzee. Yes, there. Thank you. With Greg, I see. Okay, then. I just get a declaration of due consideration that you are familiar with the material before you from the councillors?
Yes. Yes.
And are there any disclosures of interest?
No.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to the application. We've got a presentation from Mr. Simpson. Mr. Simpson.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present. That's right. I don't need to be seen. Obviously, we don't support the recommendation to refuse the application and request the alternate recommendation in attachment 14. As I put in my presentation, this tavern has been issued a conditional grant for liquor licence, and the tavern operator is an experienced operator that currently operate the Duke, Caramar, the Kingsley Tavern and the Woodvale Tavern. As I identified in my presentation, originally we're proposing to put a tavern in the northern vacant area. However, given the nature of the use and the desire to have Peony Boulevard activated, we've relocated it towards Peony Boulevard. So what I'd like to do is address the key issues of the 3 reasons for refusal. Firstly, in terms of car parking, this tavern is not a standalone tavern on a separate site. This is a tavern that's part of a district centre. So there's reciprocal relationships with existing parking on the site and also the parking on the southern side. There was anecdotal evidence from the landowners that the car parking is not used anywhere near its extent. So what we did is we did a utilisation study, and that indicated that only 43% of the car bays are used at peak period on a Saturday and only 39% on a Thursday peak period. That means there's circa 269 bays available on Thursday and 252 bays on Saturday. So what this sort of shows is that the 7 per 100 requirement under the City of Wanneroo is grossly over the parking requirement of the actual need of the centre. And this is replicated in the southern site too. That was approved with a parking ratio between 4 and 5, which is more closely aligned to what this type of shopping centre would generate. As I said in my presentation, this tavern will obviously have different peak period times from the shopping centre, so there's a high level of reciprocal parking. We also propose, as part of the response to parking, a condition that we actually undertake another car parking utilisation following occupation of the tavern within 5 years. And that was really so that, just to confirm that those numbers were correct and that there was no issue with car parking. Importantly, realistically, car parking is actually self-regulated. If the car parking does become an issue and it affects the turnover of the shops and the anchor tenant being Woolworths, then this will be raised with the landowners. The landowners will need to find a solution. We don't think that's going to happen because we think that there's obviously ample car parking on site. In terms of landscaping, this is obviously an existing centre, so it's very hard to retrofit landscaping into the design. We have looked at a couple of areas, but most of them were actually behind the shopping centre because that's where there was space that wasn't impacted by car parking or services. That involved digging up some concrete, putting in landscaping. We didn't think that was a viable option because it really didn't add to the public domain. We note that in the RAR, the question was raised that there could be temporary landscaping of the northern and the eastern side. We think that's probably not very sustainable and will actually be redundant once those are developed. And because it was raised in the RAR, we provide in our presentation the proposed development on the northern lot. That's a DATAP application that has been lodged. So that's going through its process. As part of that is a significant amount of landscaping, which is retaining actually quite a lot of the vegetation that currently exists on site. If we add that to the shopping centre, our landscaping goes up to 10%. And that doesn't include the eastern portion, which will also, once that comes online, then that'll actually need to achieve its landscaping requirement. So whilst individually this won't meet the 8% as a total, it will do once developed. The other reason was the built form. To be honest, we were a little bit surprised that the application was refused based on the setbacks to Peony. Also, what we're trying to do is activate that main street. It's on the corner. So really the pedestrian domain is from the east, not from the west. If you look at the southwest perspective, you'll see that the whole frontage is glazed or outdoor dining area. So to say that it's not an active frontage, I think is not correct. We know that there is a setback variation to Marmion. Obviously, this is a road that carries a high number of vehicles. It's not a pedestrian environment. And we propose to put some public eye on that facade. It's only a small portion of that total length of that frontage to Marmion Avenue. So in terms of built form, we don't agree that it doesn't achieve the outcome. Obviously, we would love to build a 3-storey tavern, but in the current market, that's not realistic. And so I think in terms of our response, I think we've addressed the car parking through the studies we've undertaken. The landscaping will be resolved as the development of the centre progresses. And then obviously the built form we think is completely appropriate for this corner site on the entrance. So we respectfully request approval of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Questions from panel members?
Chair. Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, in relation to parking, if there was bound to be a problem, what solutions might there be? Would you provide more parking or close down some operations, or where would that go?
So the simplest solution is we provide more parking on the vacant eastern side. So if you look at the aerial, there's a whole vacant area to the north, which we're proposing as a service station, a whole vacant area to the east.
Is that a separate lot?
No, it's all the same lot.
So the servo site, the eastern one,
all the same.
I wasn't sure on that. Okay. So they're all part of in the one owner.
Yeah, and the eastern lot is probably going to have an extended timeline to get anything on there because we've reached our peak of retail floor space. So we need to go through and really do another structure, amend the structure plan, or probably do a new one, given the new provisions are in, and then deal with that eastern. So that's still probably 5 years away from anything happening on that vacant eastern portion.
And if there was a problem, people would usually look to the surrounding streets. Is that likely to, if that was to occur, what opportunities is there? I mean, I imagine Marmion Avenue that might not be.
No, so there's no parking on Marmion Avenue. There's street parking on Peony Boulevard that we've put in as part of the development of the northern lot and the southern lot. And there's also parking on Kakadu, which we've put in as part of the development of the southern lot. But other than that, there's probably not really any other options for street parking.
Could it overspill into residential streets?
Possibly, if you go on the western side of Marmion Avenue, whether people would park on the western side of Marmion Avenue to cross over to the tavern. And I think what needs to be taken into account there is we've obviously got 400 odd or 390 bays on the northern lot and an additional 400 bays on the southern lot. So in essence, there's almost 800 bays between the two sites for both the southern site and the northern site.
And the condition you're suggesting, that's unusual, and I just wondered about the enforceability of the practicality of that condition. Have you got any comment on that?
So we proposed that condition after meeting with the city, because what the city's, I don't think that the city, and I won't put words in their mouth, but from our discussions, it seems that the city's not necessarily concerned with the existing car parking. What they're more concerned is what will happen in the future. And what will happen in the future, who knows? How many residents will actually exist? You know, we know where we are in terms of the market of residential. There's also the fact that the Yanship Regional Centre's going to come online at some point. So that's obviously going to draw people away from this district centre. So I think their more concern was the future. So what we thought we'd do is come up with a condition that requires us to review that in the future. And if there is an issue, then we can resolve it. And as I said, we can easily resolve it by just putting another row of car parking on the eastern. On the JAP approval for the southern site, there's actually a similar condition, not dealing with car parking, but dealing with the intersection of Marmion and Peony, where it says that we're actually required to review that. I think it was after 2 or 3 years of operation to make sure that it wasn't nearing capacity. And if it was, then we'd have to undertake those works to that intersection.
Thank you. That's some other questions of other matters. I think that's.
Can I just follow up?
Yeah.
Questions on parking then? Is there any reason why you didn't include some additional parking on the eastern lot?
There's a couple of reasons. First reason is we don't think it's needed, and the landowner thinks that there's ample parking on site. The second reason, and while it's not a planning consideration, is the tavern's margin. And so additional cost of putting in another row of car parking up front as part of the construction was difficult for us. They obviously, the landowner, while under different entities, own both the northern and southern site. So obviously they considered there's going to be a reciprocal relationship there. So that's why we did.
So I do have another question on parking, just in relation to the standards. Do you feel they are maybe out of date now, or do they?
Yes.
Do you think they're still?
No.
They are quite high for.
Yeah.
Giving drink driving laws apart from anything else.
Well, I think there's two aspects to it. There's the shopping centre car parking, which is 7 per 100, and that's significantly high. And we know that from all the recent approvals and occupation and utilisation of them. We know that there's a lot more online shopping. We know that they've recently just completed the Woolworths direct to boot. So that's come in the last 12 months there. So all of those things suggest that the parking for the existing centre at 7 per 100 is way overparked. In terms of tavern, I have the same degree, same feelings, is that we're providing a lot of car parking for a tavern where you go and drink alcohol. And I think whether that's appropriate or not, that's for the authorities to determine, but it is a large number of car parking bays for a tavern in itself. My own personal views, I can't remember the last time I drove to the tavern. Usually I just Uber it.
Further questions?
Thank you. I've got questions on other matters.
Yep.
Does anyone else?
Councillors, do you have questions? No?
No.
Thank you.
Just in relation to the built form, and I've got some questions of the administration as well. But you showed the town square that seemed to be over an intersection. I wasn't quite clear on what you were talking, what the point you were making there.
Well, I was assuming that the office is referring to the town square we created as part of the development of the southern lot. And that was at the driveway intersection that leads towards Coles. And there was space on the western side of that was really going to create a space where people can sit and stop, because there isn't that sort of space. And so what I was suggesting is, if the argument was that it's a town centre and that was town centre space, well, the access into the outdoor area on the eastern side of the tavern is directly in line with that pedestrian environment, that walk.
Yeah, so
Because the question, because
it's the east-west connection.
yeah, because one of the discussions was putting a door into the sort of southwest corner of the tavern, to sort of adjacent to that outdoor area. And I suppose there's two parts of that is, it's not where the pedestrians are coming from. It's not a pedestrian environment. And then we're really creating 3 doors in the facilities, which cause issues for the tenant. So we thought it was, whilst from a urban design principles point of view, we understood it, but from a practicality point of view, we didn't think it made sense.
And the outdoor seating areas you have,
yep,
is that all clear glazing?
Yes.
The elevations sort of have coloured it blue, but that's all.
Yeah, if you look at what might give you the best view would be the southwest perspective. That's on page 219 of the agenda. And you'll see the sort of glazing goes all the way around from the corner all the way along Peony.
Ah, yes, thank you.
Which I think sort of shows the level of, you know, interrelationship between the tavern and the street.
Other questions?
No, so that was in relation to the same matters.
Yeah. Are there further questions of the presenter? No? Yes,
Just a
Councillor.
quick one if I can. It's Councillor Herridge. I just wanted to check, is there a footpath along the southern end of the site?
Southern
Because
end.
we're talking about pedestrian access.
On Marmion or on Peony?
On Peony.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, just before we move on to the officers, I just want to note that we have received and read a written submission from Alex and Marilyn Stobie. So just for that to be noted in the minutes. Thank you. Moving to the officers now, or officer. Barry, did you want to make any comments or just take questions?
Thank you. I'd like to make a few comments on the deputation by Mr. Simpson. The proposal that's been put before the City and for the JDAP didn't rely on any sort of reciprocal parking analysis with other uses in the area, and relied basically on a traffic count that was done at a time when this area is very underdeveloped, and there is a lot more housing being built right now all the way around. The new Coles and associated fast food, petrol station, restaurants are just going in. And the demand for this district centre is now just starting to increase. So to base the entire proposal on a traffic count, to say that it's only reached less than 50% capacity is pretty obvious that it would not be hitting capacity at this time, because the centre hasn't been finished and the surrounding development hasn't occurred. That would generate the need for that parking supply. So there's a logical fallacy in the argument to use a traffic count to justify the proposal. And that's our concern. At the moment, the proposal just comprises a development which deletes a number of bays from the existing shopping centre, proposes no additional parking for an up to 800-seat tavern in a car-based location where the majority of people will be coming by car to the shopping centre. They'll go to the tavern by car. The uses are not, they do coincide, they do overlap at their peak times. A Saturday afternoon is going to be a very busy time for both the shopping centre and the tavern. So those peak times are going to coincide. So there's no way you can say that the tavern will be not operating when the shopping centre is not also in a busy time. The physical location of the building has positioned itself as if it were a main street building but hasn't provided an awning over the footpath. It hasn't provided any interaction in terms of access to Peony, but it has set itself up to Peony and to Marmion as though it were a main street design, but has done nothing to benefit that or create that main street element in its design. So our view is that we would be better off and would be much happier with the landscaping in between the building and the footpath to soften and moderate the impact of the built form, which has no relationship really to the creating a main street. It's internalised. The primary entry is into the car park and turns its back on that element. So it is essential in our view that it should have a landscape buffer that improves the visual appearance of the street. It doesn't have the amenity of the Woolworths building as it fronts to Peony Boulevard, nor the Coles building to justify the reduced and the loss of the landscaping and the overall lack of landscaping on the entire site. Car parking. The idea that car parking would be self-regulated is somewhat, unfortunately, somewhat ridiculous. The city is responsible, and through its assessment of the scheme and through the JDAP is responsible for deciding really what should be provided for car parking. Yes, the developer can look at its own needs as time goes on, but to say that the developer will fix the problem themselves later on, that's not really an acceptable outcome when you know that you could be creating a parking problem, and that's specifically a requirement of the scheme to ensure that we're not creating a parking problem in the future. I think the approval for the Coles development, which included a range of uses, including childcare, medical centre. Medical centre wasn't part of it, but the fast food outlets and petrol station, the restaurant uses, they were. We dealt with about a variation of about 12%, 12.5% through the JDAP, and that was down to some of those reciprocities. But there has been no analysis and no justification provided with this application to demonstrate any sort of reciprocal arrangement and how that might work with the tavern and the Woolworths shopping centre. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Baring. Questions of Mr. Baring from panel members? Yes, Councillor.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Birch.
Thank you, Chair. So, firstly, in relation to the parking, the proposed 5-year condition, you don't see that as a solution to the question at this point?
No, I can't see how that would feasibly work in terms of private on-site development. Main road, I do recall the discussion around the Peony Boulevard upgrade. That's largely to do with what Main Road's perceived as being needed in terms of the access to and from Marmion Ave. So I think that was something that was largely driven by Main Roads.
And do you see that, you said there's already been a consideration for reciprocal parking. Do you see that there's further possibility for consideration there, or do you think that the standards...
Yes, I do. I think that there is that, but there has been no analysis undertaken by the applicant to demonstrate how that would work with the existing uses and demonstrate that over time. Using a car parking survey at this stage doesn't address the ultimate build out of the site in terms of the surrounding urban development, which is now accelerating now that the train station is about to open you'll see a lot of activity in this centre as more housing opens up in the short term.
I haven't been back to the structure plans and so forth, but I was wondering if there has been a master plan for this site that addressed all of the portions of the site concerned, which might have dealt with overall parking and landscaping.
From my recollection, the structure plan doesn't deal with the parking requirements. That's largely left to the scheme. We've generally taken a pretty flexible approach with parking, provided we're given a good analysis of the situation and reasonable justification to address variations from the standards. Yes, we agree that standards are what they are. They're a starting point for discussion, but in this case, we haven't had any sort of demonstration of that this will not result in a parking problem.
This is probably a bit too hypothetical, but if they did go away and do further analysis, do you think they could, there's a possibility they might be able to convince you that they've got enough parking?
Well, we had asked for that. So I'm not sure of the willingness of the applicant to do that. That's up to them, but we're certainly open to further discussion. But we do think that there's also some of the physical design elements that need to be addressed, bearing in mind that this application wasn't presented to our DRP before it was lodged. It was post-lodgement that our DRP got to look at this.
Just so I'll move to the, or unless anyone's got any questions on parking.
Carry on, yeah.
I'll move to the built form, if you like, and I must say I'm a bit confused. You want a main street active street, and yet you're proposing landscaping in front of what is an active building. Yes, there might not be any access, but there'll be certainly plenty of eyes to the street. Can you perhaps?
No, actually, it's the other way. It's the other way around, presiding member. The applicant is saying it's a main street. They've removed the landscaping. They're saying that they've got a main street interactive facade because of the windows, but there is no interactivity. It's basically just a glass wall all the way around the perimeter, the primary frontage essentially of the building, with no access to or from it. There's no openings into that entry points along there. There's no awning over the footpath to provide shelter. So it doesn't have the function of a main street frontage to justify the removal of the 3 metre landscaping that we would otherwise require to soften the impact of a building, that it wasn't interactive. So that's it.
So if they had some access to that outside beer garden there, would that address that?
We did ask them about that. They weren't willing to consider that.
Okay, and just in relation to the landscaping and the percentage, are we talking about across? I wasn't sure what boundaries you were using for the percentages. It's the whole
site. Yeah, including the areas to the north because they're not landscaped, or to the east, which are just basically undeveloped, called pad sites.
So we've got 2 sites that will be developed, or one would imagine at some time. I think there's an application in for one already.
Yes.
So you're asking for one small portion of the super lot to sort of make up a percentage for those vacant sites as well.
No, that's not what we've asked for. We've indicated that this is removing landscaping to build this without anything to compensate for it. There's no demonstration that there's the ability for the landowner as the site is the whole site to achieve the 8% landscaping across the site. What we're seeing is a reduction in landscaping without anything to compensate for it. We're not seeing the benefits of having that landscaping removed and reduced with an additional investment in the site, significant investment in the site, provide a high intensity use with essentially no landscaping provided.
I can't see much landscaping there. I mean, there's a car park and there's a few trees.
Yeah, there's trees in the car park, there's parts around it, there's a landscaping strip. But what we're saying is the standards that we're trying to apply, they're taking away the landscaping to provide a nil setback, but no benefit to having that nil setback to the urban environment.
So if that was shops, would it be, say, a row of shops, would that be different?
Yes, indeed. That would be an active main street.
Okay. Oh, and just there was a question I may as well ask now. The condition 15, of the alternative recommendation for an ESD, it was questioned whether you had authority to impose, or your scheme gives you authority, or your planning instruments give you authority to impose that condition. Can you comment on that, please?
Well, the Design WA suite of policies set out what our assessment criteria should be, and one of those is environmental sustainability amongst all the other 9. And it's an expectation that as part of the planning process and the approval process that we have an understanding of how development is addressing sustainability initiatives to reduce the impact of any sort of development that we do on the environment. And that's part of our planning framework. It's set out in the design.
Check, perhaps clause 67 of the regulations might have something in there about that. I didn't check that, but okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Further questions of Mr. Barron?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Oh, yes, Councillor.
Sorry, can I just check one? Sorry, we've been discussing the parking as individual but whole site, and also the landscaping. Can I just understand the difference between, because we've been discussing the northern and all the different areas of the one lot. It's somewhat confusing that we're looking at parking as a reciprocal across everywhere and the landscaping as one part. Does that make sense? Can I just ask what the difference is with looking at reciprocal across the whole lot, but yet our part, we can't just do the individual site?
Yeah, okay. So yes, we can look at parking across a range of uses but at this stage we haven't had that justification provided. Landscaping is generally calculated specific to the titled lot. So in this case, the Woolworths lot and the undeveloped portions of the site. So that's where we are calculating that 8%.
And because we're losing a considerable amount and it's not coming back in, because we haven't actually
of the applications.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor, that screen froze for a while there. So if you can repeat the last couple of sentences. Frozen again.
In terms of landscaping. Yeah, I was just saying that the landscaping is calculated on the green title lot, where parking can generally be sort of more holistically assessed, where there's reciprocity between adjacent uses, but that's usually done through a detailed parking analysis and agreement with the adjoining landowners potentially.
Yeah. And then I just clarified that we've got quite a high detail landscaping element. We haven't actually been given the specifics and quite a detailed design on what they're doing with the landscaping, considering they've taken some away to not put much back in at the moment.
Okay. All right then. Okay, further questions? No? Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Baring. We'll move on to the item. I have a recommendation here for refusal with some reasons. Is there a mover for that recommendation?
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor. And a seconder? Yes, Councillor, thank you very much. Councillor Herridge.
Yeah, thank you. I think in looking at it, my first instances was if we were going to look at an alternative, the conditions were too long for me. I think there's a lot of room to move there. Specifically with the parking and the shortfall, I think it's just too large for across the site. With so much development still needing to be done within the area and the site itself, we shouldn't be relying on reciprocal and then looking at doing it retrospectively. I'm new to this myself, but looking at doing something 5 years down the track, once you've got developments all in and around the area, I just don't see how that would work, or imposing that on the developer or the owner at a 5-year mark. The landscaping and setback requirements, I agree with our officer's recommendations on those. And basically, given the scale of the development, it's just it needs to be consistent, and it seems inconsistent across the whole lot. With our requirements of DPS2, we need to approve and make sure that we create something of good public space. This seems to be a little bit poor and lacking at the moment. And yeah, I think the parking is just too much of an issue for me. So I'm in support of the officer's recommendation to refuse.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coetzee.
Councillor Herridge have covered most of it. The only thing I can add is Yanchep is certainly in need of a designated area like this proposed one, but I am unable to approve this application in its current state. The parking situation may not pose an issue at present, but it is likely to become problematic in the future. Therefore, I support the recommendation to deny the application at this time, considering Yanchep's rapid expansion and the influx of new infrastructure happening there.
Thank you. Further speakers? Mr. Birch.
Chair, I'm not going to speak in support of the motion, but I also I don't feel that we're in a position at this point to support the application either. So I think you know what I'm alluding to here, but I'll just make a few comments. Is that, and this is something that always occurs to me, and it's no influence on any decision, but I'm sure there'd be many places that would love a parking problem. In other words, they're getting plenty of people going to their commercial businesses, but that's no reason to support this. I hasten to add, but I do think there is an argument to consider a relaxation of the parking standards, and that's already been alluded to, and maybe there's an opportunity to explore that further. I'm still struggling to understand the concern with the built form. Given that it's on the corner of Marmion Avenue, I can't imagine that being the most attractive place to put, say, shops and for people to continue up to Marmion Avenue, because there's nothing happening on Marmion Avenue north of that. It's a car park, so there's no attraction for pedestrians to move in that western northerly direction. It seems to me that the tavern, the outdoor beer garden areas, that seems to be about as active a frontage as you can get. Okay, you can't move in and out of it, but you've still got all those people occupied, sitting there, and so you've got activity on the street. So I really don't understand why you would want to put landscaping in front of that. That would just seem to deactivate the area. So I really don't understand that, but I don't know, maybe I've heard the counter arguments, and I guess I have trouble understanding those. But maybe there's room for more conversation there, and something that can be done. I would have thought that with this expanding area, that this facility will be a very welcome addition to the area, and I think that point's made in the RAR that the use itself is very much an acceptable use, and similarly with the landscaping, again, I don't see where you've got a very active use right up to the corner. I think that would be, in my mind, a better planning outcome than having that corner as garden or trees and screened, because we are talking about a district centre here, so it's a commercial centre. So I will, perhaps if I can at this stage, rather than chop off everyone else, if I can foreshadow that I would like to consider so at least it gives yourself and Mr. Hick, if they wish to, an opportunity to speak to the item, because if I do move a procedural motion, that would mean...
That's right.
So
just before you finish, does Mr. Hick want to contribute to the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Having given this one quite considerable consideration, I too am not in a position to support the recommendation that has been put to us, and therefore the motion that has been moved. However, in expanding on that, in working through the assessment, I suppose concurring, the use that is proposed is acceptable, and this is really, I suppose, consideration in relation to the development that is proposed, and in particular, while three items of concern in support of refusal have been presented to us. Likewise, in working through those, and when I say likewise, maybe in terms of some of the comments raised by a previous speaker, I too am not of the view to see either the built form proposed, and in particular the setbacks, nor the landscaping warrant consideration substantial to the extent that they would support refusal. Having heard both reviewed the responsible authority report, heard the discussion today, and presentation on alternates, I too agree that both landscaping and built form I would see as being acceptable in this case, and reflective of the development and use that is proposed in its context. Parking, I do note that there is a shortfall. There could well be, I think, some justification to consider that. We don't have that in front of us necessarily today for me to feel like that could be resolved. So I suppose in terms of where I land in not supporting the motion, yeah, I would like to be open to considering an alternate motion which may not be as presented to us as the alternate, but may be around a deferral and additional information. I imagine as being foreshadowed, but that would reflect my thinking on the matter.
Right, thank you for that. Yes, I certainly agree with the sentiments expressed by previous two speakers. I think there is a workable solution here, and I think it would be wrong at this stage to refuse it, but also agree it's probably not ready to be approved. There is more analysis that needs to be done. I'm sure that can be done and brought back to a meeting. The car parking and the landscaping can be considered across the whole site, not just this particular development. So I think there are opportunities there for some reconsideration of that. So I'm going to go to Mr. Birch for the alternate motion, procedural motion. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
There's no debate once the procedural motion is put.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and before putting the motion, I will make the comment that I fully understand the responsible authority report and the conclusion that they've come to. I don't have any issue with that, particularly in relation to parking. It's a big leap that we've been asked to consider. But anyway, so I will move a motion that a procedural motion that the item be deferred. I would think for a period of at least 3 months, because there's quite a bit of work to do. Up to 3 months, to address the reasons for refusal and to look for the further justification or modifications.
So reasons for refusal and
yeah, well, to address those reasons for refusal, maybe it's sufficient just to say that. I think it's understood that particularly in relation to parking, there's a lot more exploration work to be done there.
Does that include addressing number 3, which is the setbacks?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean, it might mean a bit more persuasion, or might be some tinkering. I don't know, but that's up to the city there and the applicants to deal with that, and then it'll come back to this panel, and then it'll be dealt with again.
All right, Mr. Birch has moved that. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Mr. Hick. I'll now, because it's a procedural motion, I'll now put that motion to defer. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for your attendance, councillors, and
Thank you.
Mr. Barry. Thank you. Now,
So could I possibly maybe
seek an adjournment? Yes. Seek an
um,
adjournment for 10 minutes for a comfort break.
It doesn't even need to be 10, maybe 5.
Move.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't have any more items, so we should be kicked off, I think.
Kick us off.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. We're kicking you off.
Welcome back to the meeting, and also welcome to Councillor Bowman, who's with us here today, and Councillor Catalano on Zoom.
Can't see that she's on yet, Clayton. We're just giving her a call just to check in.
Okay.
Patricia watching.
Yeah. Councillor. Oh, okay, we're just calling Councillor Catalano just to see if she is going to join us. All right, I think we will continue. We do have a quorum, so we can continue, and hopefully she'll join us soon. Declaration of due consideration. I need to go back to that. Familiar with the material? Thank you. Any disclosure of interests? No, thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, we'll move to the item where there are a number of presenters in person here, so we'll move to Rebecca.
Thank you. So does my presentation come up now? Oh, I'll get started in the meantime. So yeah, thank you for your time this morning. I'm Rebecca Tragliani from Urbis, and I'm here with some of our team members, Alessio from NextDC, and I've got Jason from the project architect team, Charlie. So we're thrilled to reach this step of the process on our application and to see a recommendation for approval. We've also reached agreement with the city on a number of minor condition changes, and those are detailed in my presentation later. So the focus of this presentation is really just to run over a couple of key planning items and just give a brief of the proposal itself. Okay, so this is just a really high level introduction to NextDC. Probably the key thing there is noting that they have 14 operating data centres across Australia. 2 of them are currently in Perth or Western Australia. So we have Malaga, the one that we're expanding today, and then the other centre in Perth itself. So they're experienced data centre operators, and they have a good idea of what's needed on these centres and their client requirements. So just touching on that, the existing Malaga data centre. So that was approved by the JDAP in 2011, which was actually the first JDAP meeting ever. So the approved building comprised a 3-storey, around 8,000 square metre building. 20% of the site was provided as landscaping. And we're back here today because there's just such a huge demand in data centres at the moment as a result of technology needs, mainly driven by things like AI. So it's brought forward NextDC's expansion program for Malaga, and that's why we're extending the site. So the development itself, we're looking at a 6-storey building with a floor area of approximately 6,700 square metres. The majority of that building is functional, basically infrastructure and data hall type requirements. So we have floors 1 to 3 are data halls themselves, and then floors 4 and 5 are the pumps, generators, and infrastructure. There's still active space within the development. So ground floor has 660 square metres office space, and we also have breakout spaces, small breakout spaces throughout the building. 38 car parking bays on the site, and approximately 10% of landscaping. And just a couple of renders of the building itself and how it sits next to the existing development. Okay, so just touching on the key planning items, as you'll probably see in the RAR, there's 2 key items, which is plot ratio and car parking. So from a plot ratio perspective, this site is zoned general industrial with a plot ratio control of 0.6 to 1. So realistically, a general industrial zone doesn't really contemplate multi-storey developments, multi-levels. So our plot ratio is quite inflated at 2.4 for one. And realistically, we're just breaking it down, and we see a plot ratio control in an industrial area is really intended to be site cover control. So the city and design review panel have supported the built form of this application and the entire development on the basis that we're still providing everything that's essential to a general industrial area. So we're still providing enough landscaping, enough car parking, and all the services and movement areas. So we've received high levels of support from design review panel and the city, and they kind of understand the metrics that are happening there. And the other thing is there's actually no height control on the site. So we're still ticking all the boxes despite the plot ratio control, and we see that as quite nominal. And then car parking. So a data center is classified as a warehouse. Warehouses on paper, they require 2 bays per 100 square meters of floor area, which results in an on-paper parking shortfall of 300 bays for this site. There's just essentially there's no correlation between the data center floor area and the number of people who'll be coming and going from the site. So in practice, we're expecting at the absolute kind of maximum during standard operation to be 38 bays required, and that's based on NextDC's experience in Perth and other states as well. What we have provided for is this: there might be a few circumstances where more people are coming to the site. So that's during a critical emergency. So if a server goes down, you would expect a lot of people to come onto the site to resolve that. And there might also be events happening on the site as well, occasionally not part of standard operation. So what we've agreed with the city there is that we'll provide a parking management plan and just kind of detail how those things are managed. And just touching on design review quickly. So we had one design review panel meeting pre-lodgement. The outcomes of that are kind of summarised there, but in essence, they provided feedback and we resolved the majority of comments through the revised plan, and they didn't require another formal design review session. We did have a post-lodgement, we had a review by the DRP chair, and all comments that were essentially resolved either through the amended plans or through small condition design elements, which are really detailed design. So that'll be, you can see that through the comments on that slide. And just going on the condition changes themselves. So we've agreed to the city that we can consolidate 4 and 5 into a single condition, just requiring or limiting operation to 38 people on site. And then if we do require more, we'll provide that parking management plan. And then a minor condition change for the landscaping condition, just providing that prior to occupation, just so it doesn't hold up building permit. We have the right numbers on the site. It's more about what's going within those areas. So we can work through that and it shouldn't hold up building permit. And public art contribution, that's just a minor change to reflect the 15% reduction that's in the policy framework. So all those condition changes have been agreed with the city. And aside from that, that's us. It's a really important development for the area. It's really important supporting technology industries. And it's basically part of the WA infrastructure strategy is to support more data centres. So it's a really important development, and it's just a great design for the site, and received a high level of support from the DRP and city on that basis. So any questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation. Just before we go to questions, I just want to acknowledge that Councillor Catalano is or has joined us online, and Councillor before, I wonder if we can, we'll just get in view, Councillor.
Sorry, what did you say? I didn't come through.
Just welcoming you to the
meeting.
Thank you. And just need to ask you if you are familiar with all the material before you.
Yes.
And do you have any conflict of interest?
No.
No. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll go to questions now of the presenter from panel. Yes, Councillor.
Thanks for your presentation. You talk about occasional events or events. Can you elaborate on that? Obviously, I understand about emergency events, but what would constitute an event, and how often does it occur?
Yeah. Did you want to cover that?
Yeah. So I'm just basing off my experience with, say, for our facility in Perth, which we call P2. That's a bit more developed to host events. We have like an open kind of forecourt area inside, and not like a little presentation panel. So we might have some industry partners that come in or some clients that run events there. there. So there might be a technological event, could be limited to 20 or 30 people at any one time. We obviously don't have a lot of parking on site there, and people just come, they walk through the doors there. So it'd be giving that flexibility in case we're running like an IT event or something like that, or had an offering to our customers that, yeah, you could hire out the office space, for example, and run a small event. It's more just giving that flexibility, because at the moment it's a bit of an unknown. In our plans, there are areas for office space, whether that's developed or whether that's sold off to a customer. It's a bit unknown. So it could actually be, I want to say this, a non-event in any case that we would have events, but just trying to have that flexibility in there that if we wanted to, say, host an event there or host an open day type of scenario where we're showing customers, you know, our new facility or something like that, there is that flexibility there to have more than that standard 38 people. So provided the parking is managed that way.
At the moment, I mean, we have a condition saying maximum of 38 people on site, and we know why the city wanted that to put obviously some handrails around, because it's such a significant parking variation. 38 is pretty strict for the site, because we have 38 bays, maximum 38 people, but realistically, in an event situation, you probably have 2 or 3 people travelling together. So we're expecting that if we're going to sit down with our traffic engineer and just work out what a realistic capacity for the site during an event could be, and it's likely to be more than 38. So that's what will be reflected in the parking management plan.
So it's not just now data warehousing; it's also potentially hiring office space. I'm hearing from.
Well, our development approval is limited to a warehouse operation. So if we do look at you know, independent office operation, then we'll have to possibly seek reapproval.
Just through you.
Yes,
yeah, I noticed your previous presentation that we got, you had a different condition, which obviously wasn't satisfactory, and that was just additional employees and customers may be permitted subject to parking management plan. And then in your presentation, you said if we require more, continue. So are you now suggesting that you're going to have quite often more than 38?
No, 38 is 99% of operation. So it's definitely, it's a rare event that we'll go over 38, if ever. So
usually only 5 to 10 people max.
Yeah. It's just kind of providing us a bit of flexibility, so we can kind of tease out some scenarios.
How do you propose then to get around a condition which is quite definite, limited to 38 people?
Yeah, so the conditions were worded in a way that if we do provide the parking management plan, then we're able to allow some scenarios that kind of move away from that.
Right, okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, but very limited.
Further questions?
Just I wondered how you would, how you would deal with it. There's only so many parking bays, and it says 90. Does it still say 90 in the amended?
No.
So 90 is for emergency situations. So those
No, okay, it hasn't.
those potentially might not even happen once a year. You know, it's when a server goes down and every IT person that works for a large company.
Critical bit of infrastructure that failed, and we had to get say 5 techs on hand.
Imagining tactical response group, all dressed in black, turning up and spilling out the back of a van or something like that.
So a bit of background to that as well. The existing approval allows 90 in an emergency situation. So our parking management plans, we're just going to revisit that number. We might need slightly more since it's a larger facility, but that's something we're going to revisit. And realistically, it happens so infrequently, and in an emergency situation, it's all going to be like basically one organisation sending people in. So you basically back up the entire site.
You might even have to, I don't know, go to cab vouchers or
a
shuttle bus or something like that.
Yeah, it's possibly CBD based staff as well. So it'll probably be Ubers and
Okay. Further questions of the presenter? No. Yes, Councillor
Yes,
Catalan.
thank you. Yes, I did have my hand up for some time. So I wanted to go to landscaping. The design review panel made some comments. That there should be more significant opportunity for landscaping. particularly trees. So how many trees are you actually going to be putting in?
Yeah, we don't have
decided on that.
We're working through the tree implementation at the moment. The background to that is security for these data centres is number one design driver. The city's asked for more trees in the verge, and we're looking at delivering those now. We're just a bit limited in that there can't be any canopy overhang from the verge into the site because it's a climbing risk for the site. But it's looking like we can get more trees in the verge. We're kind of just working through this, literally actively working through the tree implementation at the moment. So yeah, we're working towards putting more trees in the verge and looking for opportunities throughout the site.
I was hoping you might be able to give me some numbers, something specific, rather than just a general statement that we're working through it. How many trees do you think you're going to be able to put in around the verges?
I mean, I can't give the number without
all right. That's fine. Thanks for that. Now, there was also they made a comment about sustainability strategy, and they raised a whole heap of things about that, and they said that the sustainability that there should be a condition of approval that you commit to a sustainability strategy. How far have you got with that one?
Yep. So it's standard operation for NextDC to provide sustainability initiatives, and we've sent the city through an example of what NextDC do on other sites. So really, it's just we're pretty certain on the ability to deliver that. It's just a matter of kind of going through detailed design and seeing what can and can't be applied to this site. So it's part of a condition, and we're happy to deliver that information.
Condition can be put on the approval for the commitment to the sustainability strategy as outlined in the
yeah, that is the condition. So we're happy with the condition.
Yeah, all right. So getting back to the amenity, they raised issues about windows, lack of windows. How far have you got with addressing that?
Yeah, so the city asked for more, possibly, the DRP asked for possibly a window to be placed between the two elevators on the northern side fronting Milrose, and we can adopt that in the design. So that's one of the detailed design elements that we're happy to do, and that's also reflected in the condition.
So that could be a condition of approval?
Yep. Yeah, it's included in the officer's recommendation.
Yes.
I didn't see it there. Is there an updated one to the one that we have on the agenda? Anyway, I'll ask staff about that.
It's condition 18.
Condition 18. Thank you. Now, the parking. So basically, we don't have any numbers. We don't know how many of these events. There appears now to be, in the report, it was emergency events, and I was interested to know what's the likelihood of these emergency events? How often do these emergency events occur?
Have any occurred on the existing?
Not often. Not often. I mean, we strive to be the Uptime Institute is a body that kind of assesses data centres on their level of resilience and how often they actually have these emergency style events and level of service. I know our P2 facility is 100% uptime, so for the last 4 years we've never had a critical incident that has discontinued service. There's different levels of incidences that occur there where something might fail and get people out to service them. So I'm not aware of how many emergency events they do have. Obviously, we have customers in there that have particular, they might look after their own specific, say, servers and infrastructure there, but then they might have an event themselves. They come to site to address. So I think it's pretty rare in any case. Events as well, it really depends on how the data center is constructed for it. This building doesn't actually look like it will be. It's not the same as our metro site in Perth that has capacity to host events. So I think it's more just the flexibility there that if something was to happen, if there was going to be an open day or a customer tour, that there is the capacity there. But in saying that, the 38 it's like that would accommodate anything generally, really. just having the flexibility that if we needed to, we could accommodate more people, just based on a management plan.
Further questions?
Yeah, okay. So no, there. Sorry, I haven't finished. So there's so no numbers then. Basically, we can't go. We've got nothing certain there. We've just got. We just don't know how often it's going to be that you're going to have that shortfall. Which is
numbers for standard operation or emergency situations?
No, standard operation. You've got it covered. It's your emergency and your events. That's where you've got the shortfall that's going to impact you.
So
okay.
No events have happened since let's say 2015. So I would say it's over, over 1,000 days. There hasn't been a single event. So it's probably 1 in 0.1% chance of the time that will happen.
I imagine they would be striving for no emergency.
Yeah,
events.
essentially 0, but we need to provide for it in case it does happen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from panel members? No, thank you to the presenters, and we'll move to the officers. Did you want to make any presentation or just taking questions?
I'm happy to take questions, but we'll also note the city has no objection to the recommended changes by the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Questions? Yes, Councillor Bowman.
How would the city determine what an event is?
Through you, Chair, the city did ask the applicant for further details on that. However, it is recognised that through the parking management plan, we would need those details. Nothing at this point has been clarified to date, hence why we've asked for a parking management plan. We'd need frequency. Sorry?
Sorry, keep going.
It's anticipated that we'd need details of the frequency, number of people, and maybe even technical documents to support traffic to and from the site.
And how would the city deal with compliance issues if there was more events than what was expected?
Would
they?
Through you, Chair, the standard compliance process would be enforced. The conditions 38 through standard operation, and then any non-compliance with the approved parking management plan would be enforced as well.
Why was there agreement to remove the 90 employees ceiling during an emergency? And how does that impact, considering you would have already have a traffic management plan from 2011, albeit the area is now more built out?
Through you, Chair, the 90 is nominal. We would consider any figure that the applicant presents through the parking management plan. It's not to say that we'll consider anything over that. It'll just be based on the findings submitted with that parking management plan.
So with the parking management plan that was acquired in 2011 for a lot smaller site, and albeit the area was not built out like we find ourselves now, how does that work now that the area is built out?
Through you, Chair, I don't believe there was a parking management plan submitted with the previous application. It was just a 90 persons condition, and obviously the notification on title as well. It was treated quite differently then.
With condition 10, it's been proposed that instead of prior to lodgement of the building permit, it's prior to the occupation of development. What happens when a detailed landscape plan is not approved by the City of Swan and the development is actually started?
Through you, Chair, the city stance on that would be that it would hold up the occupation of the development until such time that the city approves that and the landscaping is implemented on site.
And if a agreed landscaping plan could not be met, how does that logically work when it's already been built?
I guess through you, the chair, it is in the applicant's best interest to meet the city's requirements to commence operation.
And my final question is on bushfire. So in the report, it talks about the bell ratings. The Verge is a bell rating 29. Obviously, there's some conflicting stuff there from the design review panel. They want to see more bushes, but the city staff and the consultant talked about reducing that. The applicant wasn't in favour of that because they didn't want to go against the design review panel. I noticed that the verge has to be maintained better than what the city of Swan would normally do. Should we be putting a condition in there or changing the condition where the applicant is responsible for maintaining the verge so it satisfactorily keeps under the required bell rating risk?
Through you, the chair, the city's response to that is that the recommendations of the BAL report or BMP is conditioned through number 9, recommended condition 9, and also recommended condition 10, the last dot point, asks for a maintenance plan detailing any owner-operator responsibilities to maintain that to the required standard. Although if you do feel another condition is required, we would have no objection.
So condition 9, correct me if I'm wrong, that's regarding the actual property. The verge is not their property, so that wouldn't, am I right, that wouldn't be actually covered in condition 9?
Through the chair, if condition 9 refers to the requirements outlined in the BMP, then when you go to the BMP section 7, the implementation table details development and landowner responsibilities, which refer to specifically the maintenance of vegetation within the verge at a low threat state.
Further questions? No? Okay, thank you. Just from my point of view, should this also include approval under the MRS? Is that normal standard condition that's been used missing and should be applied here?
That is correct. No objection to that being put on.
All right, thank you. Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thank you. So with the use as a data centre, you know, it falls under the category of a warehouse. What happens if the use is no longer for a data centre? What happens then? Because we've got a shortfall of parking for a building that size.
Through the chair, the city's position on that is depending on what is applied for, a subsequent development application may be required. If another warehouse was to operate on the site, they would still be bound by the condition of 38 and may require an amendment or a new application to consider any further people on the site.
But what I'm saying is, doesn't it sort of sterilise now the use of the site because there isn't enough parking to cover that size of the building for any other use?
Through the chair, I guess we've just considered this land use and how it is operating. If a separate application was to be considered, we'd need to look at how they operate on site. As the applicant alluded, most warehouses land uses have a lower number of people on site than the car parking ratio requires. But again, we'd consider that through a new development application.
Okay, and just getting onto the landscaping, what do you suggest in terms of a condition for the trees to be planted to include or to be basically local native trees, which is the Eucalyptus todiana, which they've got in their report. They haven't included Corymbia calophylla. How can we make that a condition if this gets approved?
Through you, the chair, the city.
Sorry, given that the landscaping is going to be basically done down the track.
Through you, the chair, the city's recommended condition 10, dot point 3 does ask for selected species to be in accordance with the City of Swan's tree planting guide. At the time that the detailed landscaping plan is submitted, we would keep the species in mind and request natives where possible.
Yeah.
Alternative, you're welcome. We wouldn't be
put in a condition. Can we put a condition in this stage? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
under condition 10. Yeah.
Sorry, we would have no objection to that.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you.
No further questions? No? All right, thank you to members of staff. We'll move to the item. There's a recommendation for approval with conditions. Can I seek a mover, but I would like to add in, it's correct at this stage, we add in the condition which is pursuant to clause 26 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme. This approval is deemed to be an approval under clause 24(1) of the Metropolitan Region Scheme. So I'd like to add that in as. Yes, all right. Okay.
I'm happy to move that way, and I'm also happy to speed things up to replace condition 18 with what's been provided, the cash and lieu.
Okay.
Chair, can we get rid of, we've got 2 condition 18s.
True. So we're just renumbering the conditions. If we put the MRS one in as condition number 1 and renumber all the conditions. So Councillor Bowman has moved that with the modification to condition 18 as per the applicant.
Which is the cash and lieu.
The cash and lieu one, yeah, that's right. So is there a seconder for that?
Yes,
Mr. Birch, thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Look, I'm fairly happy with everything that's been proposed. I don't support the proposed changes to condition 4 and 5. I'm happy with what's been outlined in the cash and lieu parking. It is quite unique that the parking requirements for this, which was required to be over 300, is not needed. However, I think there's a requirement that we need to stick to the list of maximum numbers and also only to be in those areas of emergency. As we heard from the applicant themselves, this is not designed like the Perth one, so the chances of actually having an event sound like it won't happen. So I don't know why we need to include that part in there. That gives some sort of confidence to those surrounding businesses that they won't have to be impacted by any parking shortfall. Otherwise, it looks a pretty good application.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Birch.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I support the approval. It's interesting that I guess whenever the scheme was drafted, which was probably several years ago now, something like this wouldn't have been contemplated. It's different, but perfectly acceptable in the area. So yeah, I support the motion.
All right.
But I do. I would accept. Perhaps I can say that now. I would accept an amendment to conditions 4 and 5. It's unusual that, I mean, any business can have a Christmas party or something, and it's never really dealt with at a planning level. It's unusual that it's actually dealt with in this case. It seems like it's going to be such a remote prospect, and there is a provision for the city to assess how they're going to deal with that, which is, there would be countless buildings that don't even have to do that. So I don't have a problem, and I think it's well covered with the amended conditions. So I'd support an amendment to that, but I'll.
That's right. So Mr. Birch is moving the, or
Well, yeah, I'll move an amendment
Amended conditions
to amend condition 4 and 5.
as per the applicant's
Yeah.
draft.
Sorry, what are the amendments?
That's it's in that information that was sent to you, councillor.
Yes.
It's the proposed new condition which states the data centre, in brackets warehouse, is limited to a maximum number of 38 people, in brackets staff and customers, close brackets, full stop. Additional employees and customers may be permitted subject to a parking management plan being provided to the city prior to occupation of the development. Okay, so Mr. Birch has moved that as an amendment. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Mr. Hick. Jason Hick. Okay. Mr. Birch, did you want to speak on that amendment?
No, nothing further. I think, as I say, it's a bit unusual, this sort of condition. I'm not sure if there's an emergency, how the process would deal with that. But I mean, obviously, for example, if it was a fire, there's going to be a lot of people there. But anyway, no,
okay,
I'm happy with the alternative.
All right, forward. Mr. Hick, just speaking on the seconder, speaking on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. I too agree. I think the amended condition as proposed reflects some absolute initial certainty around the maximum parking provision, and then it gives the ability for the applicant to then propose and have either accepted or otherwise by the responsible authority. The details around all events, emergency and otherwise, and so I think that provides the adequate framework and certainty, so I'm happy to support that.
Thank you. Further speakers on the amendment? Councillor Bowman.
I'd like to move an amendment to the amendment, and that is to delete the words "and events."
So is this in relation to the? If it's minor enough in the sector.
So, Councillor Bowman, can you just repeat what you want to?
Yes, I want to delete the words "and events."
But if not, then we should move the motion that's on the table.
It's not in there, is it?
It's not, no.
So there's no reference to.
I should probably clarify. So we did have a bit of back and forth with the city after I submitted the original
So this
presentation.
this is the proposed. Yeah. I beg your pardon. Let's just backtrack a bit then, because my apologies. So that's the proposed new condition. Is that what you as mover and seconder
I was
support?
I'm happy with it as it is. I think it.
Okay.
I think it should include.
So we go to Councillor Bowman now, wanting to remove "and events" as an amendment to the amendment. I'm not sure.
If the mover and seconder are in agreement, it can be done at this point. If not, we'll have to put the motion to a vote, and then Councillor Bowman will have his opportunity to then amend it.
Yeah. Okay. Right. All right. Does the mover and seconder happy to remove "and events"?
No, Chair, I'm happy with it as it is.
As it is.
as is. And seconded as is. Okay,
all right. Just for the time being, Councillor Bowman.
I'll speak against it. We heard from Member Birch about Christmas parties. We're not talking about Christmas parties here. We're talking about open events. We're talking about potential hiring out the office space. This is for a data warehouse. We mentioned, Member Birch mentioned that we don't normally do it for others. Well, I don't know of any other applications that only provide 10% of the actual required parking. I think we all acknowledge it is unique. However, without any definition or any actual understanding of what an event is, and I don't even think the applicants know what an event is, because I've heard different and varying information there. I cannot support an event, especially when it's not even got a limit on there. We hear about 5, 10, 20, and they may come in cars, may come in taxis, but we need to remember this is significant parking shortfall for this application, a significant 332 parking bays. It was actually very responsible from the staff, and I thought of the applicant, to match the parking bays with the number of people on site, understanding there will be emergencies, but to add in events, I think it changes the whole application. I have not seen any traffic impact studies that talks about these extra parking, extra traffic movements. I have not seen the impacts that they'll have on the neighbouring businesses, and I think by doing that, it's open-ended, and I'm pretty well sure that I think the applicant may have other intentions, because I look at the previous proposed new conditions where they wanted it to happen whenever, and they've actually said if we require more. Well, if we require more, is it only going to be 38 staff there that's required and customers, or are we going to start to see creep to 40, 50, 60? So again, I cannot support it with that amendment. I would happy if it was just removing at an event, but reminding we're not talking about Christmas parties. They can go to Yanship Pub when that's approved. This is a significant parking shortfall.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? So Catalano, did you want to speak on this?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Look, I tend to agree with Councillor Bowman. I don't. If those words were taken out in a subsequent amendment, then that wouldn't stop the applicants from inviting people there to view the facility. It seems to be something a little bit different, the events, and I tend to agree that there is a limited number of parking bays, and it seems to be trying to add something to this which it was never meant to be. So I can't support that new condition with those two words in it. So back to Mr. Birch to close the debate on the amendment.
Chair, look, firstly, this is a data centre. We've heard concerns about security. I never heard that they were going to be using it as a function centre for anyone who wanted to apply. It might be someone who wants to demonstrate a data centre or something like that. I've also heard that there hasn't been one application since 2015 or something. So I think perhaps there's a whole lot of fuss about nothing. If we take the words "an event" out, there's nothing to stop them from inviting people to their offices anyway, and then they wouldn't have to put a parking plan in. So they might, and good luck with the council trying to enforce that. Obviously, if it became a regular thing, then it would be an issue. But I don't know how you would enforce compliance if this was just once a year or even less than that. Anyway, if it helps the meeting, if Mr. Hick agrees, then I'll accept the with some reluctance. I'll accept the exclusion of those, because otherwise we'll be dealing with another amended motion. I don't feel all that strongly about it.
Mr. Hick.
I agree with him. I think the importance of coverage for emergency periods we need to resolve. I was likewise of the view that including events gives coverage and certainty to consider that, particularly against the absolute in the absence of that being 38. But in the circumstances, happy for an events to be removed.
So,
can I just, sorry, raise a point? That was asked. They said both no. Yeah. So they've been given an opportunity.
Right, okay. I agree. Yes, strictly speaking, we have a motion on the table. You've closed the debate. It's okay. It's as it is up there. So I'm going to put that to the vote.
Sorry, I'm not clear. Have you taken out the word event?
No.
So we're going with this motion, which includes the word. This amendment includes the word event.
Yes. All those in favour of the proposed new condition? Against? So that's lost. Councillor Bowman. You're not proposing a.
No, I was only proposing for that. They got lost. So I don't need.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, I'm going to propose that new condition without the words "and events." Is there a seconder for that? Yes, Mr. Hick, thank you. I don't know if we need, I don't need to say anything. I've probably said my piece already. I don't think it prevents them inviting people to the centre to show them around. That's quite different to an event. So, Mr. Hick as seconder.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further to add. Any further speakers on that amendment? No. All right. I'll put the amendment, which is the proposed new condition, and of course it means renumbering other conditions, with that on the screen without the words "and events." I'll put that. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now where was I?
I have an amendment.
Yes, councillor.
In number 10, which is the condition 10, which is probably changed now, it's to do with the landscaping.
Yes.
The trees to be planted are either eucalyptus toadiana, and that's in the report, and or Corymbia calavilla.
So this is for the verge only?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the only place where they're having the trees, I believe. If it's not for the verge only, then it's for the whole site, wherever they're planting trees.
So it's probably a change to the first dot point in 10?
Yes, please.
Which is provide additional trees within verge areas.
Yes.
Being
Eucalyptus toadiana, which is in their report.
Yeah.
Or Corymbia calavilla. I mean, specifically those two species of trees.
Okay. All right. So that's moved by Councillor Catalano. Is there a seconder for that?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes, ma'am.
So just with those two things, we've got a bushfire consultant's report here that basically says less on the verge,
yeah,
and it's already a Bell 29.
Yeah.
So how would that impact that? And the second thing is, I heard from the applicant that they can't have anything higher than the security fence. The height of these trees compared to the security fence, what would they be? So I don't know how high these trees grow.
No.
Through the chair, it's more of a separation from the fence issue. So they need the trunks to be at least 3 metres from the fence, and then the canopy of maturity to not overlap the fence for a climbing risk. So assuming that we can, looking at these specific tree species, assuming that we can meet those two clearances, then there should be no issue with providing the trees in the verge. On the bushfire, it's mostly the bushfire issue is about canopy cover, so gaps between the canopy and ground cover, so not having too much fuel load at the ground level. So we can still do, I mean, the city's asked for turf, but we can still do a native non-turf solution that still meets low fuel requirements. So that's not too much of an issue. I think we can kind of please everyone with that.
So what we're saying is we can still plant the suggested trees,
yeah, and
meet the last dot point, which is about low fuel state.
Exactly. So it's about more the density of the trees, how frequently they're coming for the fuel, for the bushfire limitations, and then it's just the how high your ground cover is.
Right. So questions to staff then: what's the width of that verge? What's the width of those trees when they're fully developed? And is there any issues with being on a main arterial road?
Through you, the chair, given we haven't had a detailed landscaping plan submitted yet, those details would be provided by the applicant, as well as evidence that the low threats fuel state can be met at that time.
Can I suggest some additional words then, that we, being those species, if suitable?
And as the
That's
original
all
mover,
right.
as original mover, I'm happy to.
You
include
happy
that.
with that, councillor Catalano?
Yeah. Yes, with the amendment you're talking about, yes, I'm happy with that.
All right, okay. So further speakers on that? No? Yes, Mr. Birch.
Yeah, I can't support that motion. With due respect to councillor Catalano, I think that's the responsibility of the administration and the technical staff that they have there. And so I can't support that amendment.
Yeah, I think there is an issue around here. It's almost directing staff to, and they have a plan. You have a shrub and species selection process. I tend to agree with Mr. Birch there. So, are there further speakers? No. All right.
So do I speak on it or not?
Yes, you can now close the debate.
Oh, well, I didn't realise. Okay, well, I mean, you know, these species are critical to the maintenance of biodiversity in our region, and yeah, you know, I've already spoken to the staff. They're happy with the condition going in. You know, these species of trees are absolutely critical. The days are over where we can just continue to plant foreign species of trees which do not provide habitat and food for native birds and other species. You know, we've got to provide corridors that within our landscapes, in our urban landscapes, that enhances biodiversity. We have a responsibility for that. We have actually reached the critical point where this has got to happen. I mean, there is also the shade aspect of it. But I ask, you know, if you're going to put these foreign species of trees in, are they going to survive drying climate? Are they? I would argue that the local species are the best to plant now because they're going to be the most resilient in the future. We have extraordinary times before us. It is not business as usual, and we need to start thinking about preparing for the future by planting the right species of trees for biodiversity and for protection of people. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I was remiss in not getting a seconder for that amendment. Is there a seconder? Or after all of that?
I'll say.
Yes, councillor, thank you very much. All right, so I'm now going to put the amendment, which is to nominate certain species if suitable. All those in favour?
Oh, sorry.
Against? That's lost. So it remains as it is.
Thank you. I have another amendment.
Yes, you may.
Yes, thank you. Regarding sustainability, a sustainability strategy I don't know how to word it, but it was there in the design panel report. That basically, as a condition of approval, the proponent commits to developing a sustainability strategy. I don't believe that was that's been discussed with the staff, and so I think that needs to be going as an approval.
Councillor Catalano, are you suggesting that condition 15 is not adequate?
15. Is there any way that you could pop it up on the screen? I don't have it before me. Let me have a look. Can you read out condition 15? Sorry.
Prior to the lodgement of a building permit, a statement of sustainability shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the City of Swan. The statement of sustainability shall address, but is not limited to, sustainable construction materials, recycling, good waste management practices, reuse of materials, and existing structures where applicable.
Oh, no. Yes, thank you for that. No, that meets that. Sorry, I missed that one. Thank you for that. No, I'll withdraw that. Thank you.
Very much. All right. I think we've got done all the speakers at the moment. We'll go back to Councillor Bowman as the mover, the original motion, or to close debate.
Look, I think it's.
I'm opposed to it.
Hang on.
I'm opposed to the motion.
Hang on, Councillor.
Am I closing debate? Or?
Yes, you're closing debate.
Look, I think it's a good application.
Okay, sorry.
Carry on, Councillor.
I think it's a good application. There's a few little things in there which I'm sure we can get around, but looking forward to it being built.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I'll now put the motion.
Can I just say that I haven't had a chance to speak to the motion? You didn't give me an opportunity to oppose the motion in debate.
Okay, I thought you did, but
No, you didn't. You just let me speak.
okay, good, carry. Yes, you may now.
I think I need to speak on why I'm opposing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that. And okay, rightio. So look, the reason why I'm opposing is because basically I'm very concerned that such a large building is being proposed for that site when in the future there's going to be no parking. There's not going to be enough parking. And in fact, for any future use of that site, for any change of use of that site, it's basically going to mean that that building's got to be demolished, which is completely crazy. I mean, we should be thinking at this point whether that is, going to be that, what the future use of it once the data place is removed from there, because basically it sterilizes that site. So with the amount of the parking shortfall is just, it's more than significant. It's actually it's quite massive. And we have in the city, I mean, numerous places around where streets are being used as parking. And I can envisage this is going to be another example of that, where basically that little street, that little loop there is going to end up full of parking. And the other thing about it is there was just absolutely no certainty about how often these emergencies happen. I mean, we're talking tech. I mean, honestly, these things are constantly changing. There's constant disruption with it. I mean, we need to have some certainty as to just how much parking is going to be required there. Otherwise, we can't approve it because we're going to end up with the streets full of parking. And at the end of the day, it's the city that wears those complaints. So basically, I thought it was actually a very undeveloped application because they really didn't know, they couldn't answer my questions about parking and especially parking in these emergency scenarios, and also because the city couldn't answer what happens if this building, which has now taken up pretty much the rest of the site where the parking should be for the existing building, if that building is put to another use, how is that going to be put to another use given that there's no parking there? So it wasn't addressed either by the city or by the proponent, and I can't approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I actually did call for further speakers before, but that's all right. I'll now go back to Councillor Bowman again for a rebuttal or to wind up the debate.
Not to take too much time. Yes, I agree with Councillor Catalano that future use is going to be limited. However, that's not the planning item that's before us at the moment. If it was to be sold, it will have limited uses, maybe another data warehouse as well. Yes, it is bigger than normal, but with this application, it's quite clear that there was a maximum number of 38 people, staff and customers, albeit except for during emergency services. So with that, I'm comfortable in that it's not going to create a parking issue or a flow-on parking issue for the surrounding residents and businesses, and happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll now put the motion as amended All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. So now just wind up the meeting. There's no Form 2 applications, no SAT reconsiderations. There are probably some SAT applications around the place. There being no general business, I'll close the meeting at 11:55.